Hi, this is Curt and welcome to another edition of File Law Roundup.
Okay, so I think the most interesting part, and this is extremely interesting case. If you are, watching TV and watching us, turn off the damn TV right now, because this is so interesting. At least, to me, I thought this was great. We're going to Connecticut, and here we have it's a suit, right? It's just a filing of the suit, but wow, is this interesting. So a Connecticut Battalion chief has filed a gender discrimination suit. I'm going to see if I can do this not from my notes and summarize this first, because what we have is we have an assistant chief who's female, and she wants to be promoted to a higher chief level. Did I get that right? Or
no, she's she
wants to be assistant. She
wants to be an assistant chief, right?
Right, and she is a battalion chief. And she's been there for a while. This male comes in, right? And I've got to read this because a male candidate who got the position, right? He worked as a civilian dispatcher. He became a firefighter in 2005, which, by the way, the year the female chief was promoted to battalion chief, right? So she is so much more in terms of years qualified than he was, but it gets better. He held that position until he was promoted to battalion chief in 2020, but served only in 11 months, right? She's been a battalion chief for a very long time. However, and I'm not degrading the individual, I'm not degrading the male, but when you compare the two, so before his promotion to battalion chief, right, the male candidate had no supervisory experience at the fire department. In the span of less than 12 months, he is, as you say, skyrocketing from supervising no one to supervising 11 people as battalion chief to supervising more than 50 as the assistant chief, the position the plaintiff, the female battalion chief wanted. So the female candidate is so much better qualified on paper. I'm not saying personality or anything else, but so much better qualified than the male candidate. So here is what is unbelievably interesting. I'm not going to say unbelievable. The chief, well, first of all, the replacement, the guy who's leaving says, this female, assistant or a battalion chief should really get this job. You should be my replacement. I mean, even the person who holds the position believes that that the battalion chief, the female battalion chief, is very well qualified for this position. And clearly on paper, she is. Again, we don't know personalities. We only see what's on paper. However, the chief now takes action, which I am promising is not going to look good. He drafts a new job description for the assistant chief role and makes, as the complaint, the lawsuit says, a game-changing distinction, right? But it's true. He removes all the relevance of the supervisory experience which the female battalion chief has, levels the playing field down to where 11 months is now acceptable, making the male candidate an acceptable candidate, right? And just levels the playing field, which is somebody's going to question, why are you removing all of the experience requirements to now get this other person deemed qualified on paper? And nonetheless, or even worse, now the male candidate, right, passes the female candidate. They ask different questions, for the first time. I hate this, but nonetheless, there's an oral examination for the first time ever, which I think is the allegation would be, well, oral questions, now we can score those differently. And, it's not as clear as how long have you been in the position, how long have you had supervisor experience. In any event, the basis for this oral questioning, which are horrible generally, right? On paper is the way to go. If you want to avoid a discrimination suit, don't have oral questioning. And he gives it equal weight. So just in short, they take out a history of requirements, remove them, allowing just enough so this person with 11 months in the position versus the female who's got years in this position are now equal, and they then implement oral testing. I am telling you, this looks bad. If this is true, wow. And that is not the best way to avoid a suit. There is right or wrong.
It's a good way to get sued. It's an excellent blueprint to get sued.
Oh, I mean, I think it is. I think if you want to write a book, how to get sued in 3 easy steps, then certainly make it so a non-qualified male individual on paper,
lesser qualified,
right? Now allow him to, get rid of your qualifications so that men and women are equal. But here's the question I have for you. This is what because this is, if you were going to defend him, this is what I would want to say. But wait a minute, and maybe you'd end up with a reverse discrimination suit, maybe not. If the sexes were reversed, if they lowered it so that a female could become qualified, right? Let's assume it was reversed. The male's got 15 years, who easily could have had the position. The female only had a year, and they reduce it so that everyone's on playing field. Would that be reverse discrimination, or would that be opening it up?
Oh, that's okay.
That would be okay, right?
Well, there's people that would say it's okay,
And the males would say reverse discrimination. You discriminated against me for being male because you want to bring women up.
Right.
So goose and gander here. And maybe that's what they're thinking. Look, I would never give this advice. I'd be like, listen, you want to fix it? Do it after you made the promotion while there are no candidates, then lower it so it's not personal to anybody, right? And then you do it. They knew this chief was retiring. I'm sure this wasn't a surprise that this, very well qualified assistant chief was retiring. I imagine they could have done this a year before. The problem is you didn't do it a year before. Why? Because this person, the male who had 11 months of experience, wasn't there. This is I would love this lawsuit. Not that I want to sue fire departments, so don't get me wrong.
I had this lawsuit. I had the almost exactly this lawsuit.
And which side were you on?
I was on her side.
Yeah, that's the side you want to be on.
Absolutely. And she ended up getting the promotion. They actually had to create a new assistant chief's position. She got the promotion and back pay, and the city looked awful. I mean, it just looked awful. So now, again, there could be things that we're not aware of in this particular case, but I know in the one I was involved in, it was not. The fire department came out. The chief's reputation was very badly damaged. And why?
Right. And look, there is a way to do this legally if you have a true belief that this individual is not qualified. So you don't change the qualifications. You go through letting this individual be the only candidate and not doing anything discriminatory. And then you say, listen, this person is not qualified for this position. What do we say about promotions? People reach their highest level of incompetence, right? Now, I'm not saying that with regard to this individual. No comment with regard to this chief. But maybe they could have said, listen, we think you're great at the job, or you're okay at your job, but you've reached your capacity. Now, that's tough because you got the person who holds the position allegedly saying she'd be great, but at least you run through it. You disqualify the person, right? And saying you're just not acceptable. We're going to go, and now we're going to change the requirements, but you don't do it before, right? You don't do it before. You do it after, if you have a valid basis for rejecting that individual. This is such a great case. And maybe it wasn't obvious to the city when they did it. It should have been. But man, looking at this, at least through the plaintiff's lens, right? Remember, we don't know the truth. We know the allegations, but these are pretty bold allegations. If these allegations are true, the city's going to lose this case. Let's be fair. And if they're not true, fine. But this is not true or not. Don't do this. Right? There's a better way if you truly have an unqualified candidate.
Yeah, I think that the cases I'm familiar with, and there's several that kind of overlay with this one. Some race, some personality, but often there's a sense that the person who is the senior person has a difficult personality that won't be a good fit for the position. That's the sense. Now, there's also bias that interferes with your assessment of whether or not they're going to be a good fit. That's a whole nother, we're not going to get into all the things that go into bias, but certainly I think that if you feel that someone's not going to be a good fit, before you pull something like this, you really want to get an objective view about whether or not it's your own bias that's causing you to see this person as not a good fit, and not just say, well, everybody that we talk to thinks this person is not a good fit. That still is not a very, especially when the person is in a protected class, that is not good optics for that kind of decision. And this is what it'll look like in federal court.
Yeah, and again, if true, my star witness is the person who just retired saying, did you really say that you think she'd be a great fit? If the answer is yes, bye-bye, you lose. I just, but look, there's always another side.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're just viewing this through the lens of the complaint. We don't know what the true story is.